You're listening to Mark of the Maker. Hey everybody, I'm Mark Steiner and you're listening to Mark of the Maker. This is episode 66 of the show. This will be another interview episode with an interesting maker, something we think you'll really enjoy. But before we get started, let's make sure we have everybody here with us. Today we don't have Mr. Michael Birch with us. He's had some family stuff to take care of today. So we have Mr. Tom Krein.
Hey guys, how you doing?
And we have Mr. Sean Kendrick.
Hey.
And so we started to take a little bit of time at the beginning to take care of some business. So Sean, you want to take it away?
Yeah, first off, we'd like to thank all of our Patreon subscribers. You guys really help us keep the show rolling. Your diligent listening and your generosity is very appreciated. You know, you keep our equipment up to date and you help us do stuff we wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So thank you very much. And we'd also like to thank our sponsor, American Metal Exchange. If you need titanium, zirconium, mokutai, zircutai, mokume, any exotic you need, AMX is your place. And you can check out their full inventory at AMX Inc. That is AMXINC.com. Give George a holler and he will hook you up.
Awesome. George is good people, man. So we appreciate you, George. Thanks for your help.
Definitely. I mean, that we all use George. This is, not just an advertisement. He's a friend, and it's a business that we have used so much that we believe in it. We know that he keeps us rolling and gets us the materials we need.
Yeah.
Yep, I've got titanium showing up tomorrow.
That's how it goes, man. Non-stop, right? Constant flow. All right. So this time we have a guest with us to have a little chat, talk about his path into knife making and stuff that he's working on, and maybe some cool projects coming up and some other things. So we have with us Mr. Dave Brown of Visana Blade Works. Dave, welcome to Mark of the Maker.
Hey, it's good to be here. It's an honor.
Glad you're here, Dave. Looking
Thank you.
forward to this.
Yeah, so Dave's a maker we've talked about lots of times along the way on the show, and he's doing lots of cool things, and we'll get into some of that here in a little bit. So I think probably what we'll do, Dave, is like we always do with interviews, which is sort of take us back to the start, where you grew up and what kind of place it was and kind of the early part of your life. So if you could tell us a little bit about that, that'd be great.
Okay. I grew up in Red Bluff, California. It's a small town north of Sacramento. Basically, it's kind of a cattle ranching town. Went to high school there and did a little bit of metal work in high school. I took an ag mechanics class and tried making a couple knives. I actually made a shuriken, which actually got me in trouble. But I realized right away that I was completely ignorant to steel. I didn't understand why it bent and why it wouldn't hold an edge,
Right.
and whatnot. So yeah, it was. Yeah.
They weren't fans of the shuriken in ag class.
No, they didn't like it. They took it away from me.
I think, Dave, I'm not sure. I think we're probably similar age, and I think at that time, all kids had a fascination with that, with all the movies that came out, the American Ninja stuff.
Yes, I remember that one. Yeah.
I tried to make one out of a bicycle sprocket. I cut all the teeth off on the outside, except for it actually worked pretty good. It was heavy.
Yeah, because that's a hardened steel. So
yeah, it was fun. Mm-hmm. I got in trouble too.
Yeah.
Did you know anything about steel back then, like high carbon, low carbon, heat treat?
No, I was a kid in school. We were kind of punks, and yeah, we were sticking our throwing stars in the walls in the bathrooms, and we got in trouble.
Yeah, I feel sorry for high school teachers.
Yeah,
they really have their hands full.
Yeah, there's a lot going on with kids in high school, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
hormones,
testosterone,
emotions, and not figuring things out, and challenging authority, and you name it. That's a crazy time.
Yeah. This was
cars, girls, weapons, the whole thing.
Yeah. Good times.
A fine combo.
Hmm. Yeah, I've got an interesting story. When I was really young, my dad was kind of in and out of my life, but he actually lost his leg in a hunting accident.
Oh, geez.
He had his he had his right leg blown off about 6 inches below the knee with a 12 gauge.
Damn.
And he had this prosthetic leg, it was a wooden leg, and he walked really well because he still had the joint in his knee, so you couldn't really tell. But he had this Gerber Mark II that he always carried in his boot. And whenever he was around people he didn't know, he'd be talking and have his leg crossed, and he'd pull his boot knife out and stick it in his leg.
Ah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was great watching people's reaction to that. Yep.
Yeah.
That was the first knife that got me, though. It was the Gerber Mark II.
Wow.
That's a sexy one to get you.
Yeah.
The dagger is definitely it's got something that other knives don't. It's almost like an archetypal thing.
Yeah. We've talked about daggers a lot lately, it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
They're pretty fucking badass.
That last one you did was amazing, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I noticed that you commented on Facebook. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I kind of blended a little Japanese style into it with the Ito wrap, and yeah, I had fun making it. I've really been into wood lately.
Yeah.
I use koa on that one on the handle and the sheath. Yeah, Hawaiian curly koa.
Koa is such pretty stuff.
Yeah, it's really weird, interesting wood. It's kind of waxy.
Yeah.
Like when you sand it, if you sand it to 1,000 or 2,000 grit, it almost looks like plastic.
Huh.
It's got this really smooth shine to it, and there's like no grain in it. It's really interesting. I think ebony's kind of like that too. That black and white ebony that I've worked with, if you sand it with a high grit sandpaper, it comes out glossy.
Yeah. All right. So Shuriken Trouble
Mm-hmm.
and the Mark II. The Mark II is a fantastic influence.
Absolutely.
You've had a big dagger thing going lately, right, Sean? You've been in a dagger mood.
Yeah. Oh, hell. My newest dagger is actually from Dave.
Yeah.
Have you been buying them or making them or both?
Oh, buying them. I don't want to make them.
Yeah. Why is that?
Because, dude, I know how I am about grinding, and I wouldn't be happy with something on the symmetry, and those have to be perfectly symmetrical, and I would just end up throwing them away and hating myself and hating what I do. So I just avoid it because I know what I'm about.
What's worse than that is grinding a double-edged sword and then having it warped to tip left or right in quench.
Ah,
It's anything over 16 inches in an oil quench, it's going to bend left or right a bit, but sometimes more than others.
Yeah.
And it's, you spend all that time, cutting the fuller in, doing the grinds, and then in heat treat it comes out, just it's trash. You can't correct it.
Yeah. Wow.
It sounds heartbreaking.
Oh, yeah, it's bad, especially if you use, it also happens in plate quench.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can.
I try my best to make sure that everything's exact left to right, like the thickness of the final grind before heat treat. Because if it's a little thicker on one side, it doesn't quench as fast.
Yeah.
So it'll pull to the side where it's thinner. So if you get your grinds perfect on both sides, that's the best you can do, really. Just keep your fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Try to straighten it afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, you can straighten it, flat side, but if it bends left or right, edge side, there's nothing you can really do for that.
Ouch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's painful.
oh, it sounds maddening.
Yeah, well, it's, the price of admission.
Yeah. Part of the game.
If it's easy, every motherfucker would do it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, grinding swords is no joke.
Yeah.
There's just so many things that can go wrong. And the longer the blade is, the more that can go wrong.
Yep. All right. So Shuriken drama, very typical stuff. So that area, I think people that don't live in California think of California as like LA or San Francisco.
Yep.
When the reality is that's a teeny piece, right? I mean, aside from the population side of it, from a land piece of it, that's the small part. So this is you mentioned ag class or ag fabrication class. So this was farm country kind of part of California.
Yep. Rural as fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's as, Northern California is as rural as any other part of the country.
Yeah.
And small town, small politics.
Yeah. So did you guys live on property or your family work property or what, how did that all work?
My grandfather bought my mom a house.
Okay.
Like I said, my dad wasn't really around. So, yeah, we had a creek behind our house. And on the weekends, I'd grab my 1022 and my survival knife, and I was gone. And I'd blow through ammo like crazy. And that was my thing to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'd take my shotgun with me and drag a couple birds home. I mean, lots of pheasant.
Did you ever get any 25 round mags for your 1022?
I had a 30 round, but the plastic, I think it was a
Hot Lips,
Gemco or something like that.
Yeah.
God, I just remember it jammed all the time.
Right.
They were so fun if they would work.
Yeah, the standard Ruger 1022 block clips or magazines, the 10 rounds, those things never jam. They're perfect.
The little rotaries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think by the time I was done with that rifle, the riflings were gone. I put so many rounds through that thing.
Easy
Probably
to do with 22.
Yeah, between 200 and 400 a week, I would imagine,
Yeah.
for years.
Good times. Now you mentioned a survival knife. What are we talking about there?
Oh, it was a piece of shit. It was a flea market, bargain bin survival knife. It was probably $2 or $3. Back then I didn't know the difference.
Yeah. Probably like we all had.
Mm-hmm. Were you guys really into Swiss Army knives when you were kids?
I never had one. I always wanted one. Never had one.
Yeah, my mom bought me one. I think it had about 25 accessories on it. It was almost as wide as it was long. Yeah, it was crazy.
Because it had so many different features or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was about 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches wide. Had the magnifying glass, the saw, everything.
Yeah, that was a champ, I think.
Mm-hmm.
The whole
Now
enchilada.
I really like Swiss Army knives now, and I usually just carry like the Alox Soldier or Pioneer or something like that.
Yeah, it's got the basic blade and toothpick and tweezers.
We talked about that Robert Lassard guy on Instagram. Michael brought him up before. Man, he makes some cool, like rebuilt Swiss Army knives.
Never heard of him before.
You'll like.
Really cool.
He sort of pieces, and then there's been a bunch of guys over the years doing this, but his work is super clean, and he like pieces together different parts from, like he'll build a Swiss Army knife with the parts that you want in it, and which is pretty cool. And then he did this thing. This was the part that got my attention when Michael talked about it. He does this thing where there's like a drawer. So one of the layers in the Swiss Army knife is like a little pocket, so you could put matches in there or whatever.
Okay.
And I thought that was super, super interesting.
Yeah, it sounds creative.
Yeah.
What's his name again?
Robert Lassard, Lessard. I think that's
Put a
what it is.
middle initial J.
J. There you go.
Robert J. Lassard.
Is he on Instagram?
Yeah.
Yep.
And he's doing a lot of cool handles now.
Oh yeah.
I really like the skeletonized ones.
Yeah, definitely cool.
Is he a CNC guy?
I don't know if he has it done or if he's doing it himself. I don't know.
Right. The parts are CNC'd. It seems pretty clear from the pictures of like at least the scales and stuff.
Yeah. The high precision.
Well, I say that not knowing. So apologies, Robert, if we're wrong. He might be a badass analog machinist, but they look CNC'd.
It blows me away, the watchmakers. I don't know how they do that stuff. My God.
Yeah.
I watched a thing on YouTube. It was a short documentary about watchmaking. I think it was in Switzerland. And the tools they use, like everything they use, they're using a microscope on every single tool.
Yeah.
Like the way those little gears fit together and the size of the drills. Seems like wizardry to me.
It really
Pretty sure.
No idea how they do that stuff.
Yeah. Wild to think about.
Mm-hmm.
And very
why
specialized.
watches are so expensive
Yeah, right.
when you see how they're made.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Japanese maker. I'll send you his stuff after we record. a Japanese watchmaker, and he does a really nice job of on Instagram who walks through all the steps of making different parts. So he'll have like a watch project going, and okay, now what I'm working on is the gear, and he'll have posts every day or every so often about here's how the steps I go through to make a gear and window the gear, right? Because they're almost always skeletonized and all that kind of stuff, and all the way down to like dial printing and stuff, which is a crazy one too. So pretty neat.
So does he hand file the gears when he cuts them out?
I don't think he hand files them. I think he has some kind of cutter that he can control the tooth pitch. But yeah, it's really interesting, and like you said, it's also cool because you'll watch or look at some of the pictures or a little video, and then he'll say, okay, well, here's the tip of a set of tweezers just for scale or whatever. And it's like, oh my God, that's small.
Yeah, it's very small. Yep.
Yeah.
Do you guys know who Hidetoshi Nakayama is?
Yeah.
Yeah. That watch chain that he made is spectacular.
I don't think I saw that.
Oh man, it was on Monkey Edge.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think he had it advertised on his site.
Okay.
But yeah, everything was handmade. It's really beautiful.
He does great stuff.
Yeah, and there was this dagger belt buckle that he made that's really neat too.
Yeah. I think we talked about that on one of those daggers in the belt buckle on one of our episodes. He's a very interesting guy. Super nice guy, really interesting to talk to. I have one of his bolt action pens, which are pretty cool. And then I had a friend engrave it, a hand engraver, and boy, did it come out really, really nice.
That's kind of his specialty, isn't it?
He does it as well. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, he's definitely got skills.
Yes.
Sure.
Yep. And obviously a great eye for design and stuff. So.
Yeah, that goes a long way.
Tom, you want to jump in here?
I was just wanting to circle back around to his childhood, and I was just curious, Dave, if did you collect anything when you were a kid? Because a lot of us, we collect kind of this kind of stuff, and early on, was there any fascination with knives at that time?
Yeah, absolutely. I bought what I could. It was money was the big thing for me. I mean, we didn't have a lot of it, so that's kind of why I ended up buying the flea market knives.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I was fascinated with it. Looked through the magazines and whatnot, but I didn't have the money to acquire any of it. So that's probably what led me to make things myself. Was the fact that I didn't have the money to buy it.
Right.
So, yeah.
Seems like a pretty common theme.
Yeah, the fascination was definitely there, for sure.
So you had some exposure to working on stuff in high school, obviously, because the class that you took. Did you realize at that time that was something that was motivating to you to fabricate or work on stuff with your hands or whatever? Was that?
Well, it's something I've been good at.
Okay.
By nature is making things with my hands or fixing things. I was really good at fixing cars. Honestly, I didn't really know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Until I got, into my 30s.
Oh, wow.
I kind of bounced around and tried everything, and, the military and college. But, you learn really quick what you don't want to do.
Right.
I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But metalwork was something I just kind of hit the ground running with. I understood it. The tools made sense. And just the design aspect. I could see things in my mind, and immediately when I would see an object, I could kind of see all the tools and all the steps it would take to get there, to get to the finished product. So all I had to do was really do it. Like when I make things, I don't draw or design anything. I just kind of work intuitively. Like I'll usually cut a blade blank kind of big and then shape it I just let the material kind of tell me what it wants to do. Like I don't draw things and make templates. Everything is different in its own way, like each piece.
Yeah.
You guys kind of the same way, or do you draw everything ahead of time?
So I usually draw stuff. A lot of times I do take it to the grinder though to true stuff up. Mm-hmm. And once I get it where I like it, I'll usually make a pattern.
Okay.
Just the way I make knives, it's a little different than what you do, I think. I usually work on quite a few knives at the same time, and I learned under Bob Dozier, who, we had
Wow.
15 models, 20 models that we made, and that's what we made, and so I kind of do the same thing. I've got models that I make, and I use heat treated patterns and try to keep them as close to that as possible for the most.
Yeah, so the customer kind of knows what they're going to get.
Yeah, if you buy,
Exact.
a whitetail hunter from me this year, in 5 years you can buy another one, and it'll be, what to expect,
Yeah. Man, your grinds are so clean. It's pretty spectacular.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I've done
Learn by doing, right?
Yeah.
Learn by doing is a great way to put it. How many knives do you think you've ground, Tom? Just a wild guess.
Oh man.
Not just your own, like when you were at Bob's and everything else.
Probably at least 15, 20,000.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, that explains why they're so clean.
Yeah. I've done a couple. I mean, when I worked for Bob, we were doing at least 50 to 70 a week, and I worked there I was doing a lot of the grinding for the last 2.5 years. So
Tom,
it's kind of crazy.
Tom came by the Arkansas Grind Monkey nickname, honestly.
Well, yeah. And I mean, it's kind of crazy, but like regrinds, if you go on Instagram, there's like thousands of hashtag posts under the hashtag regrind. It's like, I don't know how many regrinds I've done. It's a bunch.
Yeah.
Seems like there's not a lot of material to work with if you're regrinding someone.
There's more than you think quite often, but the whole point is we're taking it down to 10,000s, and quite a few of the factory knives are even up to 40,000s behind the edge. So it does make a big difference, but yeah, you got to be careful. A lot of people don't understand that. They'll ask me to do stuff that, there's just not steel there to do,
Yeah. Yeah. The final grind is too thin.
Well, yeah. Well, or, I can't do a Scandi grind if it's already been hollow ground. That's already, that steel's removed,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's gone. It's hogged out.
And the grind that's on it dictates if I can do a flat or a hollow quite often. So yeah, you got to work with what's there.
What do you normally take your edge to?
On a regrind?
No, it's on one of your fixed blades.
I'm pretty close to the same usually. A lot of the stuff I do is smaller. So like on the TK1, which is a 2-inch blade, I'm shooting for about 10,000s probably.
Yeah, that's pretty thin. Yeah.
So yeah, they cut good.
Hell yeah.
They definitely cut good. So Dave, this being good with your hands, you had mentioned in an earlier conversation about the fact that your grandfather had a shop.
Mm-hmm.
And so do you think that you're realizing that you were good at being able to do that stuff came out of that experience horsing around in your grandfather's shop? Or
I think that's kind of what led me to do it.
Yeah.
Was when I was really young, I remember the first thing I would do when I got a toy was I would take it apart.
Right.
I had to know why did it do this, or how did it do this, and what was going on inside of it. So, everything I had, I'd take it apart and put it back together, and oftentimes it'd fail.
Yeah.
But yeah. And it was like that with cars too. When I got my first car, I was, rebuild the carburetor, if I failed and oops, I just, I rebuilt a Quadrajet on my Camaro.
Yeah.
And man, that was a project.
Yes.
You wouldn't believe how many parts are inside of one of those things. Yeah, it was probably one of the most stressful things I've ever done.
Yeah.
But I got it back together and it worked. So
Excellent.
it just, I guess I'm mechanically inclined. Things make sense. And I really like making machines too. I think I built my very first belt grinder. Built it. I didn't build all the parts, like, obviously the motor and the contact wheel and whatnot, but
Sure.
all the fixtures and the chassis and everything, and kind of made it the way I wanted it. I think that helps with developing your own style, making your own machines, making your own rests and your fixtures and everything. The way you do it lends to a different product.
Right.
Along with, your design language, of course.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100% with that, because I think so often as a maker, I work around the capacity of my tools, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whatever wheels you have, you work around those, and it does make an impact on your designs. If I think very quickly we learn to design around our tools, because the first couple designs you make that aren't designed around your tools, and you have to try to make them work, and you're like, this sucks.
Yeah.
You know, you learn that lesson quickly.
Yeah. Necessity is the mother of invention, right? Yeah. If I can make something, I'll do it. And obviously, there are things that I can't make, so I'll buy them. I just built a 9-inch disc grinder, and that was a fun project.
Yeah.
Basically, just ordered the disc, and I got a 3-phase Baldor motor and a VFD, and then I built the rest of it, and the chassis and everything, and it works like a charm.
I think I saw an Instagram post about that, maybe, where you're just after you got it started up or something.
Yeah, that, and at the same time, I built a buffer as well.
Ah, okay.
I got a Baldor, a double shaft 3-phase motor and a VFD and a couple of the arbor extensions.
Yeah.
I built that at the same time. Yeah, it's really quiet and smooth.
Very
Super
cool.
nice. But I saved thousands of dollars by doing that.
Right.
I built my own buffer too. It's based on the ones that Bob Dozier used, and it's definitely different than anything else I've seen in the industry.
Mm-hmm. What makes this one different?
So I've got quick change wheels mounted, so I can, it's variable speed, and I literally can change wheels in, 5 seconds. I can have another wheel on.
Okay.
And I basically got everything from large 3M wheels to felt wheels to small 3M wheels to wire wheels and stones that I've shaped for doing like hidden tang guards and all that kind of stuff, just all on the wall, so I can just pull down whatever I need.
Yeah, the buffer is definitely a tool that demands respect.
Oh yeah. And I think
I almost lost a pinky to my buffer.
Yeah, they're terrifying. They can.
Oh my
they can
God.
straight up be terrifying. Drill press, same thing. But if you helicopter something.
Yep. I've cut my hands many times doing that, thinking like, this will be fine. I don't need to clamp this down. And it's like, yes, you do.
Yeah.
And it'll bite you.
Yeah. So I think the buffer is for sure underutilized in our industry, just because of what's available.
Yeah. The hidden, the dangers of the buffer aren't pronounced when you see the machine. If no one tells you, you're going to learn really quick how dangerous one of those things is. I think a knife maker died was it last year or the year before?
Yeah. They several have died over the years. Always work, on the bottom half of the wheel.
Yeah.
So if it does catch it, it throws it down.
Yep.
Now it can throw it all the way around, which you're screwed anyways, but
So what happened with him? It hit him in the head, right?
I think it stuck it in his chest.
Oh,
Sean, is that correct?
No, I hadn't even heard about it.
With the buffer, it's been a year or two, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Seems
I'd
like
say it's probably 2 years ago.
Yeah, it caught a blade and it spun it around and stuck it in his chest, I think.
Jesus.
Oof.
Now, the guy who mentored me when I was coming in, one of his worst injuries was from the buffer, and he had it throw a boot knife into his knee and lodge it into behind his kneecap in the knee joint.
Oh,
Ouch.
fuck.
Terrific.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
That's worse than getting kicked in the nuts, getting hit in the kneecap.
Ugh.
And like that goes beyond getting hit in the kneecap.
Everyone's
Jesus.
cringing right now.
Yep.
Ugh.
Yeah. Be careful with your tools, gents.
Didn't Ernie Emerson have a run-in with the buffer a few years back?
It seems like I remember a story.
Nearly
about
lopped
that.
his thumb off?
Yeah. Ouch.
Ugh. And it happens fast. Really
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah. It'll grab it, throw it to the ground. It'll bounce across your shop before you can blink.
And if you're doing something that you think you shouldn't be doing, you probably shouldn't. Just stop right there. Just word to the wise.
Seeing someone working with a drill press with sleeves or a watch or rings on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oftentimes people get really, really edgy about that if you try to, make suggestions. I know what I'm doing. Yeah.
Carry on. Then.
One of these days, you're going to lose your finger because of that ring.
Yeah, not good.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you did this ag mechanics class in high school, and it sounded like maybe you weren't sure exactly where you were going to go from there. What was your step after that?
I went into the Air Force
Okay.
after high school and worked on F-111s on the weapon systems.
Very cool.
I was stationed in England during the Gulf War. Our jets were flying out of Turkey, doing bombing runs, and it was an interesting experience. I had a top secret clearance. Spent months doing paperwork before I was actually able to work on the jets. But I was on a maintenance crew, so we did troubleshooting, testing, and repair of weapon systems on the Aardvark.
Okay. So
yeah.
Dave, those planes would fly out of Turkey, but then come to the UK for service and repair. Is that what would happen? Or
that's where we were based. I didn't go to Turkey, but the guys that were actually the what they call bomb jammers, the guys that actually load the weapons, they were kind of in the same crew, but we were on the maintenance side. Those are the guys that went to Turkey with the jets.
Gotcha. So around maintaining the equipment, fixing problems, troubleshooting, repair, all that kind of stuff was really the focus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just really highly specialized tools like the test equipment. The tools that I use now, I don't think I use really anything other than wrenches and screwdrivers that I was using in the Air Force. It was all electronics, specialized troubleshooting equipment.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to ask.
I don't think I learned anything that's applicable on the outside in civilian life.
Yeah. Definitely more electronic side than mechanical side.
Yeah, working on fighter jets is not something that you can apply in the civilian world, really.
Yeah, maybe if you were a software coder or something, you could have some read across or whatever. But
yeah, I think the avionics guys are the ones that are desirable on the outside because they can apply that knowledge to civilian aircraft.
Yeah. So the Air Force thing was a fascination with planes, or seemed like a branch that you could get into from an interest perspective?
I was always fascinated by fighter jets as a kid. So again, got my chance to work on them. I went to tech school at Lowry Air Force Base in Aurora, Colorado.
Okay.
And in the hangar we had a B-1. What else? There was an A-10 in there, an F-16, an F-15. The A-10 was fascinating.
Oh yeah.
I didn't get to work on it, but like the gun was dropped out of the bottom and you could walk around it and look at it.
I think
what an amazing machine that is.
Airplanes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful. A lot of people think it's ugly. I think it's really cool looking.
Yeah, I love them.
And the gun is literally as long as the plane.
Right.
The 30 millimeter cannon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the rounds are about 14 inches long.
The airplane's like built around the gun, right?
Yep.
I mean,
it's the gun is actually offset. It's not perfectly centered in the plane because the barrel that fires is not up or down. It's on the side. Be like in the 3 o'clock position.
Ah, okay. I didn't know that.
The gun is slightly offset. I think it's to the left, if I remember right.
Yeah. I love that. It was the desktop on my computer, desktop picture for a bunch of years. That old photo of a Volkswagen next to the gun from an A-10.
Yeah, like a Beetle.
Awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I wonder what that gun would do to a Beetle.
Absolutely.
Quick work.
That would make a great YouTube video.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had this experience where a friend and I were riding ATVs up in an area in the northern part of Michigan that's used by the military for training stuff. And we got to watch A-10s basically doing practice in this military test area or whatever. We really were not supposed to be there.
No, it doesn't sound like it.
No, I don't know how we were able to get where we were able to get to, but there wasn't anything stopping us. So we just rode and ended up on a hilltop, and it's like, oh wait, there's planes up there. And then, and
they're doing
poof
the
on the ground.
runs.
Yeah, exactly. And we're like, whoa, we really are
Yes.
probably not supposed to be here. I hope they're not going to shoot anything on the hill.
That gun is really interesting sounding, isn't it?
Yes.
And you could probably feel it from miles away.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a very distinct sound. When we heard it, we knew exactly what it was.
Burp.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, you hear the gun. You think you hear the ammunition breaking the sound barrier, the crackling,
Yeah.
and then you hear the burp.
Right. Yeah, very cool.
Depending on how far away you are, the time difference is longer if you're further away.
Yeah. So working on planes, avionics stuff, but like you said, not very portable to the real world.
No.
So got out of the Air Force, and then what from there?
I went immediately to college. I went to community college in Chico. I basically took a general education run. I took a sculpture class, and that's pretty much where I got a lot of my basic knowledge with metalwork. Was the instructor had us making things out of clay, and I wasn't really into it. So I went up to him, and I told him that I didn't really want to work with clay, and he was really excited about that. He's like, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I told him that I really wanted to get into metalwork and work with metal. So he took me out to the yard and opened up the shop, and showed me how to drag the equipment out and how to turn the regulators on the torch, and just kind of let me go at it. And he was very supportive. But yeah, that was kind of other than high school, it was a little bit of forging and fabrication, but I kind of taught myself how to use all the tools, and I taught myself how to gas weld just by doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's a very exploratory thing, right? Kind of pointing you at the tools and the stuff and saying, there you go.
Yeah. Allowing you to be an autodidact.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was really impressed. It seems like most teachers would be afraid of the liability of letting a student do that. And he didn't care about that.
Yeah.
He was just excited that I wanted it.
It seems like a recurring theme that we hear over and over are these awesome, like, shop teachers that have really, or art teachers that have really made a difference in people's lives and really helped direct their career.
Mm-hmm.
I
think for a teacher, whether it's college or high school, having a student actually be ambitious or interested in something is probably really refreshing, because you deal with so many boneheads.
Yeah.
Right.
They're just there for the credit, or they don't care. So when you have that one guy, come up and say, "Hey, I'm really interested in doing this," and especially if they're into that thing, it's probably really exciting to see that in a kid.
Oh yeah.
And to want to foster that or bring it out of them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think that's true with anything where there's a teaching and learning involved, right? If someone has a skill to be able to offer to help someone else, I think that appeals to all of us, right? The idea that you can help somebody find their own thing, right? Or grow a skill or gain a skill that they didn't have before, and you can be part of it. Maybe not everybody feels like that, but I certainly know all of us do, right? That It's like, wow, this is cool. You're kind of perpetuating something, right? You're paying it forward a little bit, and that feels good.
Yeah, I have a lot of people reach out to me on Instagram and ask me questions about, how do I do this, or what do I use to do that? And I'm 100% open with everything. I just don't believe in hoarding knowledge. I think that sharing it is where it's at. So I encourage anyone who reaches out to me, hey, if in the future, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask, because I'll help you in any way I can.
And I've found oftentimes that comes right back around,
Sure.
In the community. And whenever I need help, I reach out and boom, somebody can help me.
Yeah, there's that one maker that that does that one thing that you don't know how to do.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the idea of, we've talked about this a little bit before, the idea of mentorship comes in lots of different forms, right? There are mentors that are almost like, sounds kind of hokey to say it this way, but like spiritual mentors, right? People that kind of affect your mindset. Mm-hmm. There's mentors that are people that you learned a skill from, right? Like a physical skill or even a mental skill or process. And I think sometimes people either don't seek that or accept it when it comes to them, or maybe they just don't know how to recognize it, but it can be extremely powerful. And even mentorship in the form of like your art teacher, right? Like, okay, wow, really, that's exciting. I'm glad you want to do that. Here, smack on the ass, point you at the equipment, go get it. That's incredibly cool, right? And can be almost like a life path changing thing.
Absolutely. And then when it's time for you to take the torch, you should do the same.
Exactly.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, there's a lot of gratification that comes with that. Returning the favor to someone. You could completely change the direction of someone's life, and perhaps even save it. By turning them onto something that's creative rather than destructive.
Oh yeah. Yep.
There's nothing worse than a teenager with no direction. All that energy and testosterone and nothing to do.
Exactly.
It leads to bad things.
Yeah. Sometimes a little guardrail or suggestion or push one way or the other can make all the difference, good or bad, right? So.
Yeah, I have to create. I mean, if I don't make things, I'm really self-destructive. Like if I don't stay busy, I start going down dark paths immediately. So knife making or making things with my hands has been very therapeutic for me.
Yeah. So when you went into community college, it sounded like it was, man, I got to find something in, right? So maybe you're doing a little tour of the catalog kind of thing and hit the sculpture class and boom, metalwork. And then that was your jam. You kind of took it from there, or?
Yeah, I did. Well, after that, I didn't have any tools, so I couldn't really do anything with it. And I transferred to a college in the Bay Area to finish called Dominican College. It's a private school. Excuse me. And I studied psychology there and in San Rafael, California.
Okay.
And I got a job at a little shop down there that makes lamps and candlesticks and things like that out of copper and bronze and steel. So I worked there about a year, and I learned how to forge copper and bronze, and did more forging with steel. And their setup was really interesting because all the tools that they had and they used in that shop were all made in-house. So yeah, that was a good experience, though. I learned a lot.
So what, from a tool perspective, when you talk about working with things like copper or bronze versus steel, you want to explain for people like what kinds of differences there are? Same kinds of tools, just...
Yeah, well, the temperature that you forge the steel at, or the copper. Bronze, it's a lower temperature. It's really, really easy to forge bronze and copper. It's very easy. You can actually forge it cold.
Right.
But the tools were similar. Yeah, hammers, anvil. We used a lot of fly press dies to do the bases. A lot of oxyacetylene torch work. A little bit of TIG welding. But yeah, for steel and copper and bronze, kind of the same tooling.
Okay.
Same machines. Sure.
So that was something you were doing as your job at the time, I assume.
Just to pay rent, for sure.
Yep. So how did you go from there to into steel work or metal, heavier metal work?
When I lived in Oakland, I got a job at a place called Michael Bondi Metal Design. They do really high-end staircase railings and gates. So we did a lot of work with the power hammers. I think I learned more at that shop than any other place. Learning how to forge with the power hammer. Like the railing that we made, a lot of it was like $1,000 a lineal foot.
Wow.
So it was, it was never a hurry up thing. Like the vibe there was like you take your time and do it right. So, like a piece of railing that was, 15 feet long. Oftentimes, if it was a pitched and radius piece of railing, guard railing, it would take about a month to make it. From forging all the parts to building it up in the shop as it sits in the house and putting it all together and then installing it. It's quite a task, actually.
Yeah. So you were making that stuff, or were you involved in the design piece too?
No, just making.
Yeah.
Yeah, Michael, the owner, was the one who did all the designs.
Okay.
So he would just hand us the blueprints and have us go at it. But yeah, I worked with this guy, Jerry. He's from Ireland. He's really, really skilled blacksmith. So he's the one that kind of took me under his wing and showed me how to do everything. And hats off to him. He definitely taught me. I don't think I'd be where I am now if it wasn't for him.
Yeah. What kind of stuff did he teach you that you found so valuable?
Everything, how to forge properly. Like I said, how learning to use a power hammer.
Yeah.
That was mind blowing. If you spend any time swinging a hammer on an anvil, and then you get on a power hammer, it's a totally different world. I think your life changes when you get one of those machines.
Yeah.
For sure.
Do you have a power hammer now?
I did have one, but I sold it years ago. After the crash of 2008, I kind of I ran out of work really quick, like everyone else. So I sold my shear and my mill and my power hammer. And the power hammer is the one I really regret because I could really use it now. We have one here at the shop where I rent space, but it's a small air hammer. It's nothing like the one that I had.
So how did you get into knife work?
Well, I was looking at knives one day. I had a $500 budget, and I wanted to buy a knife. So I think I spent at least a month looking at thousands of knives, and every knife that appealed to me was way out of my price range. So I just started thinking about it. I'm like, why have I not been making knives all this time? So I started doing research on which tools to buy, and I realized right away I needed a belt grinder and a kiln. So I picked those tools up and just started working with them. Looking at photos. I saw those short swords that Mick Strider had made years ago.
Yeah.
Those fucking blew my mind. When I saw those, I'm like, God damn, I got to do that. I think that that was kind of the impetus right there when I saw those blades and the way he went about making them and the style. It kind of caught. It was like catching the bug.
So about what time was this?
I'd say around 2012.
Okay.
So I got into it for a little while and then got sidetracked. And I didn't really make anything for, about 4 or 5 years. And no, I started making knives seriously in 2017. So I think I'm on my 4th year now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
and
really
then,
cool.
in 2017, I decided to get serious about it. And, I've been working 70 hours a week, pretty much every week since then, nonstop.
Yeah, 70 hours. That's a fun week, I can tell you.
Yeah. 10 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm capable of taking a day off anymore. I'm just kind of
I take Saturdays off, but I work probably at least 10 to 12 hours every day the rest of the week. So
yeah, it's kind of an addiction, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know what I'd do if I didn't have work to go do.
Yeah,
it's really kind of weird, like if I go on a vacation or something, but I can adapt it.
Mm.
Tom can make a week on the beach work.
Yeah. I think I kind of need that. Been going at it for pretty hard for too long. I think I need some time off.
It's good for your creativity, I think, to take time off sometimes, because sometimes, and I'm just speaking from my own personal experience, I get almost too tied up in what's going on right now and getting the next thing out, and I don't have any I just don't schedule downtime for myself to have creativity, and I think it can, you start getting burnt out a little bit, and with a little bit of downtime, every few months, doesn't have to be long, even like a 3-day, 4-day weekend. At least for me, it helps with my creativity, and it gives me time to think about other stuff too. So it's a good thing. I think it's a healthy thing.
So you're backed up with your books, right?
Yeah. So my folder books are pretty much closed. I've been years out on those for a while, and I need to be working on them in a more diligent fashion. But this last year's been a little bit crazy. And my fixed blades, I don't really have a book anymore, because I found that, I'd be a year out on that, and everything changes for people, they may not want that same knife. And so I just kind of quit that. And now I kind of work in batches of 30 to 40 and a quicker turnaround. So,
Yeah, I'm kind of afraid to do the book thing, because I kind of always want to be making something or pushing myself and improving or trying different things.
exactly.
And if I start taking orders ahead of time or deposits or whatever, it's kind of you're locked into what you were doing then. So, a year down the road, you're making things that you were the same way you were making them the year before.
Yeah.
So I've been kind of afraid to do that. I've just been doing, one at a time. Kind of, I don't know, I feel a little bit selfish in that way. Like if I don't want to make something, it's hard to get myself to do it.
No, I'm right there with you. And I think it's totally healthy. I don't think it's being selfish or not. It's your time. Build what you want with your time.
Yeah, the creativity's got to flow.
Yeah.
I like trying new materials and always trying to do things differently or improve. And I feel if I was backed up with a book like that, I wouldn't be able to do that.
Well, so you've been at it for 4 years pretty steadily, it looks like. And I'll be honest, before this, I knew of your work and I knew of you, but I didn't really know a lot of your history. And I scrolled back through your Instagram and it's pretty amazing. Your work has advanced rapidly from the very beginning. And it's like, even if you go back a week or two, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you can see how every piece, it seems like you're putting a little bit more of your skill into. I think it's not necessarily the soul, but it's like we learn from past projects, at least
Absolutely.
I do, and it looks like you do. And it's like you're bringing all that forward and you're putting everything you've learned into every single new project. And it's really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, it keeps me alive and doing that. Like, I can't even really look at things that I made a couple years ago. It's hard for me to look at things that I've made anyways, because when I see a photo of something, it's all I see are the mistakes or the flaws or the things that I wish I would have done differently.
Right.
I mean, am I the only one, or is everyone kind of like that?
I think that's a curse that many of us have, it's as we look at our own work, we're always our most harsh critic because we know what happened when we were building that. People that can't see that don't know. And it's just like, it's a beautiful piece and there's nothing you would change differently because you didn't build it,
Yeah. Yeah. You kind of see the whole thing rather than each
Right.
individual, like, this is how I was feeling when I did this. And oops, I wish I would have done that differently.
Right. When I was, I did a bunch of product photography kind of thing I was playing around with for a while. And so I took tons of pictures of knives and it was interesting because Bob Tergiola, I had a couple of Bob T's knives, maybe a few of them at the time. And so I had some pictures of some details that I thought were really cool. So I had these very close macro photos that I just thought were visually interesting anyway. And on more than one occasion, he reached out and said, "Hey, those photos are beautiful, but please don't take those photos anymore. Don't get that close on my work anymore. It makes me upset. Yeah, I don't want to see that. And I don't care if anyone else can't see it, but I really don't want to see it."
Yeah.
And it was interesting, right? It's a great example of that where, you guys see stuff that other people don't because the rest of the story behind that plunge or, you know what I mean? That fuller or whatever, what went into that and maybe how it, maybe some cases had to get rescued or whatever, right? Whatever happened. And, so it was like, wow, here's Bob T, who's, the godfather of some of this stuff. And he's seeing the same stuff and really being bummed about it. That's an interesting realization.
Well, that's what keeps us from improving, right? Is being a critic of our own work. Ultimately, I want to spend more time. I think that's why my work has been improving, is because each piece I make, I spend more time on. And ultimately, I'd like to get to a place where I can make one thing a month.
Yeah.
Like right now, it takes me about 2 weeks to make a katana. And, the wood saya and all the fittings, all the trimmings. Yeah. It's about 100 or 120 hours of work, and I still want to push it further. It's just you got to find people that are willing to pay the amount it would take for you to do that.
Yeah.
To spend, if you're only making one thing a month, it's not going to be cheap.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's really where I want to be. I want to get a microscope out and, go over everything do everything down to the molecule exactly how I want it without the fear of taking too long or going broke or making $2 an hour because I spent too much time on it.
Right. Right. Which is easy to do, right?
Yeah. Very easy.
I think the earlier comment you made, Dave, is an interesting one about, well, maybe I don't want to really do the book thing. And I think sometimes people come at this, and I'm interested in Sean and Tom's perspective on this too. Sometimes new makers come to this thing and that's their point of pride almost, or maybe that's a measure that they look at is how deep is my order book or whatever, right? How much pull is there for my product? And they kind of bury themselves in something like that ultimately becomes such a pressure thing over time, right?
Yeah, it's an ego thing. Seems
it seems like it. Yeah.
Like books are closed. They put it in big bold letters on everything.
Yeah.
Like you can't have what I make.
Right.
Yeah. If I'm, I don't know. I'm just glad that people appreciate what I do.
Yeah.
And that means everything to me. And if I can make something happen for someone that I work with people that, that can't afford things. And if I can, I will go down as far as I can on the price to make sure that they can have it because they're, genuinely interested.
Yeah.
And I don't want to feel like I can't do that for someone because I've been there, that's where I come from, the place where, I couldn't afford that.
Yeah.
So I have empathy for that.
I think the spot that you're in where if what you can do is choose what you want to work on and it isn't so much a worry, right? And I think this is some of where the book thing comes in, right? Is people feeling like that's security, right? Like, okay, well, if I have 100 people, 100 name list, then wonderful, right? It's like I have guaranteed income for some period of time as long as I can continue to service that list. And maybe that's part of what drives that behavior. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah,
because there's no contract.
If you're in prison, you have a place to live and 3 square meters a day too. So it's kind of like that, putting yourself in a prison cell, Yeah. Like, well, now I can just kick back and I've got my 3 squares and a cot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd rather, live where I don't know whether I'm going to pay the rent next month, and it forces me to adapt.
Right. Yeah, I think not everybody's that way. That'll be my observation, right? Same reason people are fine working a 9 to 5, right? I mean, like I work for the man. I don't have a self-employment kind of a job. It's a good job.
Your job's pretty fucking badass.
You
designed the transmission for the new Corvette. Yeah, that's not bad.
It's a cool job, but I think it's different, right? The whole thing around it is different than what you guys do, and I think that's why so many people are comfortable just working a 9 to 5 or in a whatever boring job that they don't care about. Is it pays the bills and there's security and stability and
if you have debt, you kind of have to.
Right. Well, and I tend to think that a lot of it has to do with the whole mindset thing, right? Where people have priorities and I think people with creative minds prioritize, to your earlier comment, sometimes for who knows, right? Mental health reasons or otherwise, right? They have to prioritize the ability to feed that much higher in the hierarchy than someone else might, right? Who's willing to go do a mind-numbing job to pay the bills and kind of move their way along.
Yeah, well, if you have a family and and a mortgage, you got to do what you got to do.
Right.
I guess I'm in a position where I don't have any debt at all. I do have a son, and I take good care of him, but I don't really have a family per se.
Yeah.
And I don't have a mortgage, and my overhead's so low. I guess I'm lucky in that respect that I can kind of do what I want to do.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for that. But there is a lot of comfort to having your own home and having a family to come home to at night. where I don't have that. You know, I rent a room and have roommates, and at my age, it seems like that shouldn't be the case, but it does. You know, it gives me freedom to do the things that I do, and I guess it's worth it for me, the trade off.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads me to another question I have. You've mentioned several times that you, like the shop you work in, they have a power hammer. What kind of shop arrangement do you have?
It's a 20,000 square foot metal fabrication shop. It's called Chico Metal. The guy who owns it just really, really likes my work, and I work for trade, or I work for trade. I trade work for rent, basically. So I have a space in the shop, and I have all the tools in the shop I can use, which is fucking great. Like the power hammer. I typically use only my own tools. I do use the lathe and the mill and the hammer here, which is huge. Like a lot of the stuff that I make, I wouldn't be able to do without a mill.
Yeah,
like some of the English or European style swords, I need a mill to cut the fuller in.
right.
I actually just built. I took a linear actuator that I bought on eBay, and I've kind of made this fixture, and I'm going to try grinding in with a small wheel. This attachment that I have, it's the linear actuator mounted to a stand, and then I clamp the stand to the table that my belt grinder is mounted to, and then the linear actuator is set up on bolts where I can raise it and lower it from side to side and forward and back. And then once I get it straight, I can actually run the linear actuator left and right to grind in the fuller, so it comes out really straight. I just finished it last night and kind of did a test run on it, and it came out good, but I haven't tried an actual sword yet. So I'll be able to cut in fullers like an inch or an inch and a half wide, or not an inch and a half, like a 3/4 or a 1 inch fuller.
A lot different look.
Yeah. Yeah, the milled ones are, I typically work with between a 1/4 inch and a 1/2 inch end mill, or a ball nose end mill. So they're smaller.
Dave, you must have put a video of that on your Instagram story or something. I swear I've seen
just
that.
yesterday.
Just recently. Okay.
Yeah, I deleted it almost right away because I'm like, well, this doesn't look, you can't even tell what I'm doing. Yeah, it was kind of like I was turning the linear actuator with my hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my first test. So I was kind of running the bar into it and seeing, if it was chattering or whatnot. So
okay,
it's come out pretty smooth though, because the table that I mounted it to is really heavy. Like I used 1 inch plate on the floor, some really heavy pipe for the stands, and then a piece of 3/4 inch plate that the actuator actually sits on.
Okay.
And then all the mounting hardware, it's all really rigid and heavy. So when I run the bar into it, it doesn't chatter and jump around.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited to try it.
For sure. I saw that video and I'm like, what is he doing?
Yeah, that's kind of why I removed it, because that's exactly why, because you can't really tell what it is.
I'm like, is that a bevel grinding jig or something? I'm like, I see the thing moving. So yeah, linear actuator, got that part, but what is he doing exactly? But fuller makes all kinds of sense.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully it works out. We'll probably end up making a piece of scrap with the first run, but we shall see.
That's how tool development goes, man.
Yep. Did you guys know who Owen Bush is?
I don't.
He's a sword maker.
Okay.
He's got an Instagram account. He made this sword. It's called the Dragon Slayer. It is fucking so badass. You got to check it out. I don't know if you guys have Instagram up right now.
Yeah. Say his name again.
It's Owen Bush.
Owen Bush.
BUSH or BUSCH?
BUSH. Bush. Yeah.
What sword is it? I'm on his site.
It's called the Dragon Slayer. It doesn't say on there, but I looked it up on his website. It's 63 inches long.
Holy cow.
Yeah, it's so fucking badass.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Isn't that thing killer?
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty sick.
Yeah, but let's look into the fuller on that. If the sword is 63 inches long, then that fuller is at least an inch wide.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, I saw that and I'm like, yeah, I kind of want to I want to give that a go. something like, and the fuller cuts all the way back into the guard where the guard fits.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, he's based out of England.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sword is actually for sale on his website.
Oh, really?
What is it, 7,600 euro?
Yeah.
Which is actually not bad considering the size and the amount of work that went into it.
Oh, yeah.
And the material.
Actually, I would buy it immediately if I could afford it.
That's really
Fucking thing's almost as tall as I am.
right.
Man, I'm all about that Shamshir next to it on his page. Damn,
Yeah.
that thing's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely doing some cool stuff.
Oh, yeah. That thing is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So that's a piece of steel forged into that curve, I assume.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it must be.
Huh.
That
Yeah, I
thing's
like the
wild.
shape of it. It's pretty wild.
Yes.
Either that or he got a 36-inch plate to cut it up.
Yeah, it doesn't say how long it is, but if you go to his website, he's got the specs on the pieces.
Yeah. Wow. Super cool.
Yeah, it's a really interesting curve to it.
Yes.
Like the first, I'm assuming at least 12 or 14 inches of it is almost straight,
Right.
and then it just swoops up.
Yeah. So Sean, that's a traditional kind of that looks like a very ethnic knives kind of a shape, like from some region.
Oh, yeah, it's a
Some
Persian cavalry.
Persian,
saber.
yeah, I was going to say it must be Persian.
Yep.
It's a swordsman or a horseman's sword.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, there are people's work, some people's work that inspires me to create, and then there's others that make me want to give up. You look at that stuff and I'm like, I think I'm going to give up now.
Yeah.
But not really, but kind of get that feeling like, fuck, I'll never be able to do that. Holy shit.
Exactly.
It's Killian Kreutz. I know
Yeah.
you guys mentioned him on the podcast before. His work's kind of the same way. It's so well designed and clean. I can tell that he probably spends at least a month on each piece that he makes.
Yeah.
Like the grinds, they're fucking wild. I don't even know how he does some of the stuff that he does.
Those are the pieces that to me are always the most interesting, right? Where you're looking at it like, how exactly did that happen?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it leaves you scratching your head.
For sure.
Do you know who Julian Antunes is?
The name
He's one of
sounds
those.
familiar.
He's a Brazilian knife maker. Yeah, his stuff is fucking wild. I don't remember. He's on Instagram, but I don't remember what his handle is.
Yeah.
I think maybe it's Antunes Knife Maker.
I think
But
it's
yeah, he's one of those guys that makes me
Bladesmith-
want to give up. What's it called?
Bladesmith _Antunes Julian.
Yeah. Yeah, if you look at some of his work, he made this dagger and sheath. And just like the twist pattern, the Damascus is, and everything is, it's beyond perfect. The symmetry and the execution is like spot on. Yeah, I'm glad there's people out there doing stuff like that to inspire us to get better.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's the interesting thing about Instagram is, and we've talked about this before, right? Where so often if you just start kind of, I don't know, scrolling around, searching random hashtags, whatever, the number of makers at this point in the world is absolutely amazing.
Stunning.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
there are people out there doing really, really, really crazy looking work that, we just never heard of before, right? And sometimes I think that comes from, I don't know, maybe like us tending to stay inside our circle of contacts and friends or people we know, you know what I mean? That kind of stuff. And not really considering the fact that there are so many more out there. I don't know what it is, but frequently I'm amazed at like, wow, there's someone I've never heard of before and they're doing absolutely crazy looking stuff.
Absolutely. They're people that they're locked away in some country, in a lot of Eastern Bloc countries, that I look at their work and I'm like, fuck, man, they're spending months on each piece. There's that guy, Vasily Vorobiev. He goes by Basile Artist.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
His stuff is really Geiger-esque.
Yep.
Like I look at his work, I'm like, I don't even know how the fuck he does it.
Right.
He must spend months on everything. Just like all the details, just a week on this, a week on that.
Yeah.
But his work is fucking mind-boggling.
Yep.
Man, while we're talking about Instagram, your Instagram handle is Vasana Bladeworks Dave Brown. What's the Vasana Bladeworks? Where does that come from?
Vasana is a Sanskrit word that it means the carrying over of habits or skills or whatnot from a past life. It's basically what it means. Okay. I'm not sure, on the translation, that Sanskrit is an old, really ancient and dead language.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just kind of it resonated with me because the metalwork kind of, it feels almost like I've done it before.
Yeah,
like I hit the ground running with it. The tools and forming metal and making weird shapes with metal is something that comes really naturally to me, and I don't know where it comes from. It's not me; it's coming from somewhere. So yeah, that word kind of resonated with me.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah. Dave, do you think that you mentioned earlier in the discussion about being able to see things, like when you look at something, it's almost like you can see in your head the tools that it would likely need to be able to make that item. That's why some of these makers and the work they do, it becomes really fascinating, right? Or really cool to think about, because that puzzle solver thing in your brain is going, whoa, wait a second. Right?
Yeah, it's like
tool not found in inventory or whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you must make this tool or find it, or if you can't afford it, then move on to the next thing. Yeah, it's very linear. There's the vision. Like if I have an object in my mind, it's that I immediately get this linear, like a timeline. Like I can see the end product, kind of what I want. It's of course going to change as I'm making it, but I can see all the steps, like these steps, these tools, and I'm like, okay, now I just need to go and make it.
Yeah.
I think that's why I don't draw anything or plan anything. I just kind of start with a general idea and then just kind of let the material dictate where I take it.
Yeah.
So the initial ideas and the end product are oftentimes very different.
It's an interesting thing because I think, with engineering, that's a very common thing, the whole spatial relationship thing, the idea of being able to visualize three-dimensional shapes and how they fit together or not. And, that's where all the stuff around designing tools and, for manufacturing stuff is all very deeply tied into that whole idea of being able to visualize it. And so it sounds like your artistic process is all about that visualization and associating that stuff with the steps in the process or the things that happen to get from raw material to the end result.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you'd be surprised what the material will bring out of you.
Yeah.
Whether you're inspired. I'm oftentimes inspired by natural forms. Like I had this book when I was doing architectural gates and railings. I do a lot of really organic looking stuff. I get inspired by natural forms. And there was this photographer in the late 1800s called Karl Blasfeld.
Okay.
And he has these books. He took black and white photos, a lot of macro photography of natural forms, like seed pods and roots and stuff. And I got a lot of inspiration from that kind of stuff, just looking at that.
Yeah.
Rather than looking at actual gates and railings, I would refer to natural forms or geometric shapes.
Oh, that's very interesting.
And the psychedelics played a huge role in where I'm at and how I do things.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a completely different person pre and post, psychedelic experiences. I think I was kind of a numbskull before I got into that. It brought something out of me, the way I see the world and the way I do things that I otherwise probably would have never discovered. I'm not trying to be pro-drug or anything.
Right.
I don't really consider psychedelics drugs. I think they're, not to sound wooey, but then they're like they're a medicine.
Yeah.
To, it's, some people are against them, and that's fine. And I don't advocate any of that, but for me, it definitely worked.
So when did you get involved in that, and how did it kind of fit into this whole process?
Psychedelics?
Yeah.
You mean? I'm kind of a late bloomer with substances. I was a really good kid in that respect. I didn't do anything until I was in college. So I think my first experience with psychedelics was 22. It was after the Air Force.
Okay.
There's a lot of self-actualization that happened, and it changed me in all the right ways, for sure. Like I'm pretty sure I would have never got into, full-blown creativity mode if I would have never had those experiences. It kind of gave me the confidence and the vision and the willingness to do things, to carve my own path, rather than to go the path that I was taught to by society.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to me. I've never experimented with any of that, but I've read a lot about it. Do you think that you're the rule or the exception when it goes to dealing with psychedelics?
You mean, am I a textbook case?
Yeah, I mean, some people,
I think that
psychedelics can cause some issues.
Yeah, well, what they teach you for the most part when you hear about the quote unquote bad trip.
Right.
I've had a couple of them, and to me, looking back on them, those are the good ones, because it's like a complete fucking bitch slap. It's like, oh, you thought you knew how things are, or you're this way. It's like, no, you're nothing. You're nothing. It's a complete ego death. So for weeks afterwards, you're kind of reassembling yourself and thinking about how you see the world, or how you interact with it, and how you treat people. And it makes you realize that, this is obviously, I was doing this wrong. Treat everyone, with kindness and respect, and you'll get the same from them.
So do you think... Go ahead.
Oh, just the ability to see and think abstractly, I think that's the major thing that they changed for me, was, of understanding how to see the world and process things abstractly.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to put all this into words, really.
Yeah. So kind of a realignment thing, or a clarity thing. Mm-hmm. It's kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Or am I misunderstanding where you're going?
Yeah. There's I don't think there are words that exist that can explain,
okay,
what something like that can do for you. And you're right, Tom. People do have bad trips, and some people never come back.
Right.
So that's kind of the risk you take. And I think the biggest lesson is you're not in control. And oftentimes the bad trip is a result of someone not letting go, because the experience is going to take your mind in a direction that it wants to, and you have no control of that. So if you don't accept that and you fight it, it gets really dark. But the moment you surrender to it, you realize that it's actually a lesson. It's not dark or terrifying. It's actually very educational.
When I've read some studies, and I, we're talking psychedelics. I don't know exactly what, no specifics have been mentioned so far, but I've read some stuff on microdosing LSD and creativity, and some of there's some pretty interesting studies. I'm
absolutely,
like I said, I'm pretty much a teetotaler, but I have read some of the science and some of the studies, and it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's big in Silicon Valley.
Yeah. A
lot of coders are really into microdosing psilocybin or LSD,
right? Taking
sub-threshold doses where you actually don't feel anything.
Right.
So the amount you're taking, and they stack it with commonly with what's it, lion's mane,
right?
Which is it's a mushroom, but it's not controlled or psychedelic in any way, but it's a neuroregenerative thing. Do you guys know who Paul Stamets is? He's that mycologist.
I think so. Is he the one that does the tea and stuff? I've got some of the lion mane.
Yeah, he does have his own line of mushroom supplements. But he's been on Joe Rogan's show a couple times. I highly recommend watching those or listening to those podcasts.
Can't anymore.
You can't?
He's not unless you have.
Because of a subscription thing?
Yeah, he switched.
Oh, it's on
over.
Spotify.
Yeah, he's on Spotify now. So I'd have to,
Yeah. Did they remove all of his podcasts from YouTube?
yeah, you can only listen to him if you have a Spotify subscription now.
Huh. I thought with Spotify, because I do have a premium account, but I thought that you can, all the content is there. You just have to deal with ads if you don't have a subscription.
Oh, that may be true. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that's the
I think
case.
that's what it is.
So yeah, I mean, if you haven't heard this, he's had some guests on. They're really amazing. But the Paul Stamets one I recommend it for sure.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
I think one of the interesting parts about this whole thing for me is the idea of Knife Maker as an artist and Knife Maker as someone who's more of a crafts person. We've had this conversation before, Tom, and it's always a struggle,
Yeah.
right? Where
Because it blends into both. I mean,
exactly,
Sure.
yeah.
So it's like,
Absolutely.
I consider
the
myself more of a craftsman probably than an
Yeah.
artist.
I think the knife is the ultimate expression of, like, if you're a sculptor, because most sculpture is, you're making a useless inanimate object that is only to be appreciated by looking at. Whereas if you spend a month making a knife, and putting everything you have into it, it's something to look at, and it actually has a use too.
Right.
It's one of the most primary rudimentary tools of civilization. So who's to say that you can't make it also a sculpture, to blend the two together?
Right.
And the designation of artist has always bugged me. It seems kind of self-indulgent. So I never really kind of refer to myself as an artist. I think a craftsman was a more accurate designation.
Yeah.
For sure.
Is that because of stigma that you have around that word artist, Dave? Is that where that comes
just
from?
because of the people that I know that go around saying, oh, I'm an artist. It's like I just don't like, this that bothers me.
Yeah.
Because they want to be an artist, but they don't bleed for it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they want to be that person, but they're not really. They just want to be that person, and it just bugs me.
They just want to wear the beret.
Yep. I know a lot of those kind of people, they don't want to bleed for the craft that they supposedly do.
Yeah.
They just want to be identified as one of those people, a painter or whatever.
Right. That's it. It might be a really bad way to describe it, but to me, that mindset about labels and other stuff is a very punk rock thing, right? It's like a very,
It's image.
yeah. It's I don't know. I think there are people that have that kind of perspective on lots of different things in life, right? That it's like, no, I probably am that, but I don't really want to be identified as that because there's a bunch of douchebags that are identified as that.
Exactly.
That's not who I want to be. So I don't want to go there.
When people ask me what I do, I just say I make things.
Right.
And if they pry, I'll go into it. But I generally don't want to like open up the dialogue. It's like, oh, you're a knife maker. Are you fucking psycho? Or,
Right.
like,
How do they throw?
So I don't tell them. I'm like,
Empire?
I just make shit.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Don't even get me started on that. I mean, I don't want to say anything bad. I don't like trash talking, but yeah, if you get me going on that, I could get negative really quick.
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy thing, but
Ugh.
yeah, I like the idea of knife as ultimate sculpture because and maybe it's because I just turned 50. I don't know, but lately I've been thinking, how cool is it going to be in 100 years? These tools will still be out there doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah. And it tells a story too. If someone looks at it and it's different than something they've ever seen before, and then they're going to, wonder about who made it or,
Yeah,
what do they like?
it's pretty cool.
And what were they thinking when they made it? Are they crazy?
Yeah,
Right.
Oh,
Which is, I'm sure, a question that a lot of people ask about, us.
well, I mean, it's like anybody that makes anything. It's it's stuff that's got to be made.
Mm-hmm. what do they call it? The right kind of crazy?
I'm
Yep.
down for that.
Yeah. The right kind of crazy.
Yeah.
That would be a good shirt also.
Fuck yeah.
Yes, I'm crazy, but the right kind.
You know how many millions of dollars you can make with a t-shirt?
Oh, I know. It's crazy.
It just, yeah, if it catches on, if it hits people in the right spot, you know, you make a bunch of them and you get them into the right stores and you could retire on one t-shirt.
Right. Yeah.
It's all about timing, like a meme. You know, if you drop a meme at the right time, it goes viral.
Exactly.
And if you turn that meme into a t-shirt and, you know, well, it's available on here for, you know, $10.99,
Yeah.
that could fund your new house.
That's
there.
that's what the world of bumper stickers used to be, right? That was the old
Yep.
saying back then, right? Oh man, that's a bumper sticker. Somebody's gonna
Yeah,
make $1
or
million.
that whole have a nice day thing,
Right.
that smiley face. That fucker made a lot of money on that.
Yes. So one of the things we've talked about lots of times with makers, and I think it's pretty common, is the struggle with feeling like what you did is good enough,
Mm-hmm.
and how that really is a motivator, right? It's a driving force. And you've talked about that here obviously as well, right? Where you don't want to make what you made before. You want to make a better version of what you made before, or take it to the next level, or use that as a launching point for some new project. And that sounds like it's a pretty huge piece of kind of your approach to all this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I have a really hard time talking about myself in certain ways. Like, I don't know how the world receives what I make. I'm just glad that the people that do appreciate what I do appreciate it, because it keeps me going.
Yep.
Where do you get the inspiration for your work? It seems lately, and even early on, you had a lot of Oriental influences, but then there's also European influences in there. Where do you get your creativity for that?
I do look at a lot of blades. I try not to look at things when I'm making stuff though.
Right.
Like I have a general idea, like a color scheme or a shape, and I just, like I said, I kind of let the material tell me like how it wants to go and how to do it. Yeah, I'm very inspired by the katana and Japanese weapons, obviously. The first time I saw a katana, I thought it was the sexiest thing I'd ever fucking laid eyes on. It was just, just elegant and perfect. So that, definitely inspirational. The broadsword, daggers, really like daggers. Never really got too much into the Bowie knife though. I don't think I've ever actually made, one per se.
Right.
And I know that it's kind of a hot thing. A lot of people make them.
It's been a thing for a long time, right?
It's like the American knife, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I love them, but hate to make them.
Yeah. I don't know why. I appreciate it. It's just not my thing.
I saw you did some early on, and even here lately, you've done a few push daggers that are really kind of cool.
Yeah, those are cool. I like the idea of it. It's not the most practical blade, but it's kind of a single purpose tool. When you see it, you get it. Now I see what that's for.
Right.
How do you use this?
Yeah. It's a letter opener, right?
Right. Do you know who W.W. Kronk is?
Yes.
Okay, so
yep, his daggers are fucking mind-boggling.
Yeah, well, some of your work really kind of reminds me of his, especially like you've got some like knuckle knives that are like Skinners and just different stuff that is, to me, they make me think Kronk. Not necessarily a Kronk knife in particular, but some of them, that's where they take my mind.
A little bit of that vibe to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, some spectacular work for sure.
That's a pretty solid endorsement.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say.
Well, I mean, Mark, can you see it? Do you?
Yeah,
you look
absolutely.
At some of his stuff.
Absolutely.
I definitely see. It makes me think Kronk.
Yeah.
Which it doesn't make me think of a specific Kronk. Just
Yeah.
The style.
Not a biting on Kronk thing, like
right.
Yeah.
Some of the same feel or similar feel. Yeah. No, I could totally see
His work's
that.
really, really clean.
Yeah.
I wish somebody would make a coffee table book on Kronk. There's just not enough out there.
Maybe you should do it.
I have 10 million things to do, and I'm not skilled at that.
Yeah, as far as like visually appealing images, it's definitely hitting on all the cylinders.
Yeah, I would love
Sure.
love someone to find access to collections and actually do modern photos and a little history.
That would be
And then maybe a Virgil England and a Jody Sampson,
yeah.
for sure.
Well, I really think I've kind of pitched the idea of like a series of coffee table books like that, the legends, and I just don't think there's the numbers for it to work. But
As far as sales, you mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
It would be an expensive book with all the the color and the size and the images.
yeah.
I would imagine that books with lots of photos and colors are more expensive to print.
Oh, I'm sure.
Must be.
Hardback.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Instagram and the internet, it's really, I'm sure, made a huge dent in publication sales, like hard copy.
It seems certain that that's the case. Yeah.
Yeah, like the MP3 to music, just
Exactly.
to the compact disc or the cassette.
Yeah. What Dave, looking back at some of these knives and projects that you've done, are there certain ones that stand out to you as like, oh, okay, this was a really cool, either a piece that you just were in love with, or something that was like, yeah, when I got this done, it was a milestone for me. Like it opened up a door, or I proved to myself that I could do it, and it sent me on a path. Or are there some milestone pieces in here for you?
I don't know if there's any one in particular. Sometimes I look back at my feet a little bit, and for the most part, it kind of makes me cringe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm probably not the only one that feels that way, but I see, like a slow growth. Like I'm trying to spend more time on fittings, like incorporating more fittings, doing things properly. Yeah, I don't know if there's in one piece in particular. It's just as a whole, I see the movement and of where I'm trying to go.
Yeah.
But I'm really self-critical, and I typically can't look past what I've done in the last couple months.
Yeah. So it's
I'm
more
like,
of a continuum thing from your perspective than it is steps.
Yeah. I don't think that there's any one time or piece it's been more of a slow, steady progression.
Dave, do you still do decorative stuff that are not knives?
Oh man, I've been thinking about it a lot lately.
Yeah.
I want that one. For me, the holy grail is that one gate project where there's a client who says, I don't care how long it takes and I don't care how much it costs, just make me a gate.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've always wanted, and I haven't had the opportunity to do it. And I know money has always been the factor that's limited me as far as how much time and how much detail I can put into something. But I'm not really sure like what I'm capable of.
Yeah.
And that's something that I really want, and I've been thinking a lot lately. Is a gate project. I want like an entry gate or something where I can spend 6 months on it, and kind of do the research. And I've had ideas for making hardware out of forging Damascus and incorporating Damascus into the gate, like the latch, designing the latch, making all the handles with Damascus, the brackets, and experimenting with patinas and colorings and textures, and trying to incorporate as many materials into it without getting garish.
Right.
Maybe
right.
some hardwood. But yeah, that's been on my mind lately. It's funny that you say that. So if there's anyone out there that wants something like that, please get a hold of me. I'm fucking dying to do it.
Right?
I'm dying to do it.
I'd like to see it.
Man. Yeah, it would be refreshing.
It seems like one of those situations where having the ability to go do that and then come back to doing what you're doing with knives would be maybe one of those watershed moments, right? Like, okay, I went away and had my little mind cleansing experience, or, got to play, and then come back and maybe your work goes in a little different direction or has a different
For sure.
thing. Yeah.
I think musicians probably experience that a lot too when if they're practicing a lot or playing a lot, just putting the instrument down and doing something else and coming back to it, picking it up. And you're like, holy fucking shit.
Right.
Like, why didn't I ever try this or do this? And yeah, I think that would be a major lift or a learning experience would be to do something differently.
Are you familiar with William Skagel?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I look at his knives they pop up on eBay every once in a while.
Well, it's kind of cool. You kind of have that same skill set because he did a lot of blacksmithing stuff with like architectural metalwork around his place and fences and gates and stuff.
Yeah, the episode you guys did on him was spectacular. Like I learned a lot by listening to this podcast. As far as knife making podcasts go, there isn't really a close second. And I'm being completely honest here.
Thanks.
Like, the amount of research and information. But that one, I didn't know anything about him as a person, and he's very solitary and didn't like people very much. And I think that's
just knife makers in general.
Yeah, that's the price of admission. If you're not willing to put in the time, then get the fuck out.
Right. Right.
If you're in it for the image, or you want to be a knife maker, and you're not really, you don't have the ingredients, or you're not willing to spend the money and to buy the tools and to put the time in, then you really you don't belong in it. Total dedication to the art is what you should be doing. You got to give it that as a respect to the craft.
Yeah, I agree. And I think one of the things that we may have said off air, but you mentioned, you worked with what you had, and then you would take that money and buy more tools, and you'd work and buy more tools. And I think it's an important thing. We all start out pretty much with no tools and nothing. Money.
A couple screwdrivers and a wrench.
Yeah, we start building, and it's like a lot of people look at our shops now and they're like, well, if I had all your tools, I could build knives like you too. And I'm like, probably not, because you didn't gain the skills it took to get these tools.
Yeah, it doesn't happen overnight. Like that your shop didn't, you didn't just put a drop of water on a little cube and the shop, just kind of assembled itself. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
I always laugh when people are like, yeah, I'm going to buy a welder. I want to be a welder. I was like, no, it doesn't work that way, buddy. Yeah. You can't just buy a welder. That's not how it works. I mean, if you get, 10 or 20 grand together and, I could suggest a basic set of tools to start. But until then, you can't just buy a welder or buy a grinder and decide that you're going to do something. There's a lot. You're going to make a huge investment in files and all the hand tools and everything.
Yeah.
And with that one machine isn't going to do it,
I did like when you were talking about earlier on in the show, you were talking about oxyacetylene welding, and I was like, that's something I can do. I can't weld very good with a regular welder, but I can oxyacetylene weld. That's
the hardest weld. If you can do that, you can TIG. Because like if TIG welding and oxyacetylene welding are, the same idea, heating and feeding the rod in, but oxyacetylene welding is much harder than TIG welding.
To me, it's very relaxing. You start getting the flow with the rod, and you're moving the torch and the rod.
For sure.
Pretty fun.
Yeah, I used to zone out on it a lot. Just cut little pieces of sheet metal and do patchwork sculpture. I'd use a Beverly shear, and I'd use wrenches to bend the pieces of metal. And I'd cut shapes with the Beverly shear, and then I'd oxyacetylene weld a patch in, and then I'd keep going and just make an object with that. That's cool. Kind of how I learned to flame weld, was doing that in that sculpture yard. Just go to the Beverly shear, cut a piece out, flame weld it on, bend it, tweak it a little bit, and then continue doing that.
Well, that's pretty cool.
It'll teach you a lot. Just one piece, if you're laying 40 feet of bead, over the whole piece, and that's a lot of experience in that one little piece you made.
Right.
Oh yeah,
for sure. There's a picture on your feed, Dave, of your son planing some wood. Do you think is he interested in the knife thing or in the handwork thing, or is he?
Yeah. He does it. He's really, really into school. Like I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, but he wants to be an engineer.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and he's a straight A student. I mean, as a matter of fact, right now he's in the office below me doing his homework, and I come into the shop in the morning. He comes in with me. He goes into the office, and he's doing homework all fucking day long.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah. He just got a perfect score in his math class his last one. He's a freshman. He got 100%.
Fantastic.
Like literally 100%. He didn't get, it wasn't docked 1 point on anything.
That's awesome, man.
So yeah, he has made things with me in the past, in the summertime usually. He's very, very patient and detail oriented. He made a cane sword. Of course, I helped him, with the grinds and whatnot, but he, for the most part, he does it himself. He likes, chiseling and planing wood down. And I try to make sure that, when it comes to like there's certain machines that are off limits. Obviously the buffer.
Yeah.
I don't really let him work with the drill press unattended. The grinders, I can turn my back, but I make sure that he's doing it right. Like I just tell him, if you're working on something and it gets out of control, you fucking pull your hands back and walk away.
Right.
Don't try to grab onto it. Just let it go.
Yeah.
So he hasn't hurt himself yet. I think he's really safe and pays attention and he's patient. So I think he'll be all right.
Awesome.
But for now, he's pretty much 100% into his homework, into school.
Yeah. Well, good at his studies and detail oriented and not afraid to use his hands. It sounds like a fine engineer candidate for sure.
Yeah, mechanical engineer.
Yeah.
That's what you are, right? Mechanical?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and I think that interest in using his hands or not being afraid to use his hands to do things is something that a lot of engineering, I'm going to call them engineering kids, right? Young engineering candidates, they don't have that experience, right? I think it increasingly is less
Solid
common.
works.
Yeah, right. They're right. And the modeling stuff is important, but having that connection to your hands or to things, right, to physical things is a huge piece of that process of being able to understand how to make things. And I think that would be a great, not having that fear, because lots of kids do, right, that are in engineering school or thinking about engineering stuff. They've never actually made anything before, right? And they go to engineering school and they can do very well.
It should be a prerequisite for sure. Like fabrication, if you're a mechanical engineer, you should, machining, fabrication, those should be the basic building blocks before you get into the design. Because a lot of, the frustration with contractors and architects is the architects design things and they hand the plans off to the contractors like, this isn't the way it works.
Yeah.
And it's a really common thing. And that's probably why, because the architect has never built anything. So they have no idea, how to design and to draw up plans in a way where you can actually make it.
For sure.
The same thing applies to engineering. I would imagine that if you're engineering something and handing it off to the machinist, that there's probably a barrier going on there.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely had the experience as a young engineer of going into our fabrication shop and being told I was a fucking idiot for what I drew up, because there's absolutely no way that we can do that. So that's nice, kid. Nice try. Get the fuck out of here. And
that's not the way it works, buddy.
If you'd like to know how it should work, bring donuts tomorrow and show up at 6 and let's talk.
And just spend the next 6 months or a year of your life learning the basics.
Yeah.
Good donuts.
The good donuts, yeah.
Yep.
Or bring chicken livers or something good. We want snacks down here. You get anything done for snacks, but
Chicken.
Yeah.
Those were exactly. That's what
I don't even know what those are.
But they loved them. Yeah, deep fried chicken innards.
Livers.
Yes.
Hard pass. Bring me a donut, Mark.
Yeah.
I want the donut.
When I go to Crying Knives Galactic headquarters, I'm bringing donuts. That'll be
Galactic headquarters, huh? I didn't realize you were a galactic organization. So your home base is Earth, and you have franchises set up all over the galaxy.
Yes.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Damn.
Tom's game is strong. Never underestimate.
Yeah, I need to step up my game. God damn.
But those lessons were great lessons. And I mean, they're hard to learn. And, sometimes getting it wrong is important. And so, yeah, great experience for a young guy who's thinking about doing engineering stuff to actually go get his hands dirty a little bit, because a lot of them don't. And that could be a very helpful advantage.
Yep, they're just pencil necks, right?
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
which you got to be pencil neck to get through the program. But,
Yep.
also being able to touch things is important.
Well, he's got the work ethic, and I
Yeah.
told him right away, if you're into engineering, you take the advanced math classes right away.
Absolutely.
Go as far with math as you can, and that's what he's doing. He's taking all the AP classes,
Oh, good for him.
and he's got the work ethic. So that I think that's the most important part, is he's willing to spend 16 hours of his weekend doing homework, and that's going to be the price of admission. Because if you don't have that and you piss away your time and get D's and C's in college, and I just try to instill in him that if you're going to do something, do it right or don't do it. That you have to give. If you respect something, then you have to give it what it takes. And
Always.
if you don't want to do it that way, then don't do it, because it's very disrespectful to the people in the field and the craft itself to not give it what it needs or what it deserves.
Yep, absolutely. Sean, Tom, you guys have anything else you wanted to talk about? Or Dave, did you have anything else you wanted to hit? I know you got a couple of projects that are coming that we might want to talk a little bit about.
Let's hear about it.
Oh yeah, Les George reached out to me a couple months ago, and I'm really into those 1918 daggers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he I've always loved that piece. He reached out to me and said, hey, why don't I send you 4 of these when they come back from casting, and make the blades for 4 of them, however you want, and keep 2 and send me 2, and let's do it. So about was it 2 or 3 weeks ago they showed up, and I've been thinking about it and trying to catch up on some projects that I've got going on, and it's kind of intimidating, because
Yeah.
Les is someone I really respect, and I want to make sure that I do something, correctly and right, and
You probably never met him, right?
no, not in person.
Yeah.
He's a character, I've heard.
He's awesome.
I can tell by his text that he is.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
Sure.
He is a character.
Yeah, I told
I
him
saw
when I
those.
see him, I'm going to ambush him. He's like, he said something like, now we're talking, or that's how I roll.
That's funny.
Bushwhack.
Yeah. He's an awesome guy. I really look forward to seeing how that comes together, because there's
Yeah, I don't
such
want to let him down.
Yeah, no pressure.
No, exactly. So I'm always putting it off. Like, well, the longer I wait, the better I'll be when I get to it. So,
yeah.
like that piece I made for you, Sean. When you reached out to me, I was like, fuck, man. I'd never made anything for another maker before, and I was just like, fuck, I really like your work, and I'm like, fucking not good enough. I'm gonna fuck it up. And then when I started making it, I had all those demons in my head, and I just couldn't get it the way I wanted it. So I just had to walk away from it. And then one day I came back to it, and I'm like, okay, I think I can do this now. So I just put it together.
That's
It was tough for me to do that, though.
Turned out immaculate. It's a
Thank
crown
you.
jewel in my collection.
It's a fucking gnarly piece, huh? You punch through a
Oh,
fucking
yeah,
wall
dude,
with
it's business.
it. All business. Yeah. Yeah, it's business on every end, too. Front, back, and center.
Fucking A-right, man.
I got to ask, what'd you get, Sean?
One of Dave's trench knives with a, symmetrical dagger blade and exposed skull cracker.
Oh, cool. Is it on his feed?
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
the gray one?
It's got a black
Double black
canvas
canvas.
part. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how far back it is.
Yeah. It's got
Man, have you guys had any problem with fucking PayPal? Those motherfuckers.
yeah.
Man, they really, I was fucking suicidal for a minute there.
Yeah.
They just, without any contact, nothing, they just froze my account.
Yep.
And I had a bunch of money in it. A bunch.
Don't leave money in that account ever.
Yeah, I learned
Lesson
that.
learned.
And
Dave learned it the hard way.
They stonewall you. They're like, sorry, we don't know anything.
They can keep it for like 6 months.
Yeah, they keep it for 6 months. And the guy, I think his name's Sean, Bali Ballistics.
Yeah.
Yeah, he reached out to me, and he told me immediately, like, this is what you got to do. So for other makers, if this happens to you, PayPal freezes your account. You still have the ability to return money to the customer. And Mark, you helped me out with this.
Yep.
Yeah, what you do is you go and you refund immediately refund and contact all of your clients. And if they're cool, you refund them and have them pay you a different way.
Right.
Because you're not going to see your money. Sean told me that they say that they're going to give it back to you in 6 months, but I've heard no one get it back.
Yeah,
they fucking keep it. Yeah, they're fucking criminals. Like that experience. Like, I don't get mad very easy, but man, that hit me. It was like frustration, sadness, and anger all mixed together in
quite a few makers.
A lot. Yeah, and I'm sure some of them had quite a bit of money in their account.
I empty it instantly. And if
you're
a customer, don't put anything in the comments. Nothing.
No, even if you tell them not to, they'll still do it. I had to look back and people were like,
for sure.
Right. Oh, I know. Because of Syria?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I've heard of people that make Damascus billets get shut down because people put Damascus. And like, oh, this must be terrorist money or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, I had people write shuriken or throwing star, and I was like, God damn it. You know, like that's pretty much what happened. You know, it takes a while, sometimes immediately, sometimes it takes months, but they'll catch on. And when they freeze your account, you're fucked. They won't even talk to you. They don't give a shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a word of warning to all you makers out there, because PayPal and Venmo, they have a very anti-weapon policy, and they can arbitrarily decide that, you know, we don't like you, so we're going to shut you down. And, you know, sorry that you have this money in the account, but, you know.
I wish we could teach some of these people that we're not making weapons necessarily. It's more art. Teach them that nobody's going to go murder someone with a $5,000 dagger or whatever, whatever.
The kitchen knife is as far as knives go, is the weapon of choice for homicide.
Yeah.
Like
because of its availability.
Knife.
And the kitchen knife is the one that people, like Instagram won't shadow ban kitchen knife makers.
Right.
Like they don't realize that those are the knives that are, that are being used because they're everywhere.
Yeah. Like I think more people get killed with hammers probably than knives.
Yeah, I mean it's not a matter of whether it's a knife or a gun. An object is an inanimate object. It's the psyche of the person who picks it up. And this is an argument I get in with a lot of people, is the whole weapon argument. It's not a weapon. Anything can be a weapon. What weaponizes something is the intent or the psyche of the person who picks it up.
The mind of the user.
Yeah. So banning guns, it doesn't matter. People are going to figure out how to make explosives with shit in their kitchen sink.
Right.
Or they're going to, you can do a lot of damage with a 4-wheel drive truck if you really want to. And if you try to ban guns or knives, that's not going to change anything.
Yeah.
It's a matter of mental health. And I think that psych meds are playing a huge role in this, because when I was a kid, I never heard of a mass shooting. And I see a parallel between the rise in the amount of psych meds being used and these fucking wackos going around shooting up a school or whatever. And I guarantee you that 99% of them are on psych meds.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's not a matter of weapon, it's a matter of mental health.
Yep.
It's kind of a hot topic, right?
It is, but yeah, it's a mess. We'll see what happens with some of the stuff that's going on.
Well, the people that are making the laws they don't know what they're doing, like banning high capacity magazines. What does that do?
Yeah.
Well, you can draw the same conclusion between the architect and the contractor, or the engineer and the machinist and the lawmaker and everybody else.
Yep.
They have zero clue.
Yep.
Yeah, well, the politicians are just getting on board for votes or whatever, their constituency. They're like, oh, yeah, I'm anti-gun. It's like, I'm not really anti-gun, but I'm going to be because my constituency is liberal. So they got to appear as if they have a liberal stance on it. And they're passing laws where, they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
Unfortunately. Like the switchblade thing. Why is an assisted opening knife? Why should that be illegal when you can buy a 12 gauge shotgun and double-aught buck?
That happened because of movies and laws, and that's getting reversed a lot of places, which is really cool.
With the switchblades?
Rick Hinder just.
Oh yeah, I just listened to that.
Get that reversed in Ohio.
Okay, so it was just Ohio, not national.
It is happening in more and more states, but the latest one was Ohio.
Okay. Yeah, California is probably going to be a tough sell. New York and California are always really,
Yeah.
liberal.
Yeah.
Yeah, or just throwing stars, any of that. It's brass knuckles.
Seems like that's all coming back, though. A lot of people are making knuckles and stars and
Yeah.
saps and just kind of weird,
Yeah, you're
crazy
just like
World War II
Yeah.
fuck you. I'm going to make what I want to
trench
make.
weapons.
Yeah. It's when you
Which I
compare a sap or a brass knuckles, to a knife or to a pistol, which is totally illegal to own, there's no comparison.
Yeah.
So to make a sap or a trench knife illegal is ridiculous. Because, if you're going to harm someone with one of those, you got to be a bad motherfucker.
Right.
I mean, you have to be willing to get really intimate with someone to
Yeah.
take their life with a knife, where a gun is a point and click kind of interface.
The same thing with throwing stars. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know that ninjas even killed people with those.
No, they weren't a lethal weapon. They're meant to be a distraction.
Yeah.
Kind of like throwing dirt in someone's face and then attacking.
Yeah.
You throw a star as a distraction and then you strike. Same thing. Yeah, it works. Hell yeah, bear mace. When people ask me, the home defense thing, I should get a shotgun or a pistol. I'm like, nope, not unless you're willing to train with it. If you're not willing to train with what you have, you don't know how you're going to react in a high stress situation. And if you're not trained to where that weapon is part of you and you have a muscle memory, you're going to end up doing more damage than good.
Yeah.
So I always recommend bear mace.
Right.
Like
Yeah. Spray some of
take
that
out-
in your house and see how it goes.
Yeah, you could. You got 20 people charging at you. If you have a camp
Everybody's
bear mace,
down,
everyone's down.
Yeah.
including you.
Yeah. Well, at least you're not going to be in court, facing manslaughter charges for that,
Right,
or trying
right.
to prove, that I was trying to save the life of my son or my family.
Yeah.
Because they're going to try to get you. You're going to end up in jail, no matter whether you're justified or not. I doubt that the cops are going to walk away from your home the night you shoot an intruder without taking you to jail.
Yeah. Yep.
So, that's gonna put a big dent in your pocketbook. Missing work, trying to explain why you shot someone, going to court. It's just not worth it.
No.
If there's another way to do it.
I hope I never have to.
Nope.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
well, I can't wait to see what ends up with the collaboration that you and
Yeah.
Les do.
Yeah.
I would- Don't be hesitant.
I got to get over the anxiety.
I promise you've got the skills, and I just looked at the one you built for Sean, and I mean, yeah, there's not a whole lot different there than what you're going to do on the brass ones.
Yeah. I want to make these blades, they have to be really slim. And, I got to, the lathe is down right now. So I got to figure out how I'm going to thread, because I want to do full tang. I don't want to do that weld on tang bullshit.
Yeah.
So I want to make it one piece, and I actually want to transition from the tapered square tang to actual threads in all one piece. So I need to figure out how I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
So I used to do that on the Morseth and hidden tang knives that we do.
Uh-huh.
I actually think a brazed on screw, if done correctly, is stronger.
It is. Yeah.
Because
Yeah, I can see that you don't want to. Well, if you're doing a plate quench, you can't avoid it hardening the screw. So you definitely want that to be a malleable part, so it doesn't snap.
that's why I switched. I switched because it's the steels that I was using also don't really do differential tempering well, like D2 and stuff. And so I actually started just silver brazing, and if it's done right, you can't pull that off, and then you've got a soft threaded section too that's less likely to break because there's stress risers and stuff.
Yeah, shock resistance for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I can't wait to see what you do. Have you seen any of the triangular blade ones like that?
You mean like the stiletto style blade?
Yeah, they're three-sided.
They're not sharp.
Right.
That's really interesting. Maybe I'll try to do that. I got to figure out how to grind that. Like maybe start out with a piece of round stock or square stock and forge it into three sides, and then use like maybe an 1.5 wheel and grind in.
Use your new linear bearing thing with maybe a 2 or 3 inch wheel.
Yeah, I could set up a sign plate on it, so it's yeah. I'm not a machinist, so I got to kind of figure that shit out.
But that could be really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Fuck. Yeah. Only problem with that is there's no edge.
Yeah.
It's just a stabbing weapon.
You don't really need one. You just punch that in somebody.
Well,
Those are
trench
those.
knife is
I really like those.
they're fucking brutal. I love stilettos. Man, those things are fucking badass. Do you guys know who Niels Vandenberg is? Black Dragon Forge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's making some really, really fucking out there stilettos. That's one of the guys that makes me want to give up when I look at his work. Have you seen his drawings? I think he has a background in graphic design, but when you see his drawings, they're more beautiful than the actual piece.
Yeah.
Just the detail in his handwriting and everything is just fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
very cool.
he's definitely a planner. He does the planning before he does the piece.
That was one of the interesting things with Grace Horn when we had her on, right? Was hearing her talk about her notebooks and all the crazy planning process that she goes through, kind of opposite extreme version from what you do.
Yeah, her scissors were the first experience I had with her work. The one she made was about 1.5 or 2 years ago. I was watching the progress. That's when I started following her. You know, the jewelry. She's getting down with the jewelry saw and the needle files.
Yes. Yeah.
And I really respect that kind of work. It's very tedious and time consuming, but I mean the end product is spectacular.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I got a jeweler saw. I was doing some scales out of silver, and I got a jeweler saw so I could kind of save the silver because it's expensive.
Yeah, save
And
the dust.
After about half an hour, I was like, screw this. And I just made dust because I was like, it's not worth saving the money for silver.
Yeah, with a jewelry saw, you got to get the right blade for the job. And there's about 24 different blades. And there's a scale or a chart online on usually people who sell them will have a chart and they'll tell you, how many teeth per inch, how wide, and I think they have different hardnesses and tensile strength for what material you're using. But I think for silver, you would want to use a low tooth count. So if you were using a high tooth count, it probably just wasn't cutting. It was just making dust.
Yeah, it was not quick, and I
don't give up on it.
Quickly grew frustrated.
If you get it down, it'll work but it'll cut like butter. You just got to get the right blade for it.
Cool.
Fun stuff.
Yeah.
And you have to have a stomach for tedium to do this work.
Right.
10 hours of hand sanding. It's not everyone that can do that.
Definitely not.
The right kind of crazy, right?
You got to be the right kind of crazy. Yes, exactly.
Yep. You definitely have to be crazy to want to do this shit.
So, Tom or Sean, you guys got anything else you want to hit? I think we had a great discussion.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, once I get into the groove, I can kind of go on, but I just don't spend a lot of time socializing these days. So it's when I sit down and try to talk, I'm like, I'm so used to being in my head that it's kind of like takes me a minute to get out.
Yeah.
No, you did great. And like I said, I wasn't super familiar with you. I've been following your work for probably 6 months or a little longer. And it was a good look for me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, that means a lot to me, Tom, especially coming from you.
Yeah, we appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. I think it gives people a better insight into your work and kind of your approach to it. And, that's what we're about, right? Is let's tell the people's stories so folks can better understand. And I think we covered a lot of territory. So thanks.
It was mind-boggling, the fact that you guys reached out, because the caliber of guests and subject matter that you guys deal with, I never would have thought you'd want to talk to me about that. So it was very flattering and, intimidating, really.
You fit right in. It was perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I would actually like to have Dave back when we've got Michael on.
Yeah. Yeah. Michael Birch, we'll have to talk about...
okay.
You already forgot the motherfucker?
Yeah.
No, I was thinking of a guest.
I thought it was Tom who said Michael. I was like, really, Tom?
Oh, wow.
I didn't say anything because
you guys
I
don't like
know
each
who it
other,
was.
We just like to bust balls. That's all. That's
I kind of thought, 50% of me thought that, man, these guys are just going to bust my balls for 2 hours. That's what's going to happen.
We're nicer than that most of the time.
Yeah.
We're pretty nice to the guests.
Yeah, right. It's one another that we're a little rough on sometimes.
Yeah, well, like I said, you guys, there is no close second. You guys do a great job.
We appreciate that, man.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, like Sean said at the beginning of the episode, high five to all of our Patreon folks that support us and keep us going. Big shout out to George at AMX, at American Metal Exchange. Thanks again, George, for all of your help and support for the show. We appreciate you, and we couldn't do it without those folks. So we really thank them for their support and their appreciation of the show. That's the nicest part about the Patreon thing. It's great that they help financially. It's also kind of a proof of people feeling good about the show and supporting what we're trying to do, and that feels good. So we really like that. So thank you very much. All right. Well, I think that's it. Dave, thanks again for your time and for giving us some insight into your life. I think it was a great chat. So
Absolutely. It was an honor.
yeah,
Thanks, man.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, bud. Pleasure was all ours.
I think that's it. We'll talk to you next time.
Take care, folks.
Good night.
To learn more about our makers, you can find Tom Crine on the web at crineknives.net, in his Facebook group, Crine Knives, or in his Instagram account, at Crine Knives. For Michael Birch, check birchtreeblades.com, Facebook group Birch Tree Blade Works, or Michael's Instagram at birchtreeblades. For myself and the Raygun Bead Project, we're on the web at raygundivision.com. We have a Facebook group called Raygun Division, or my personal Instagram, at msteiner. For those interested in photos, references from the show, or some discussion about the show itself, you can find us on the web at markofthemaker.com, in a Facebook group called Mark of the Maker, or on our Instagram, at Mark of the Maker. Last but not least, the ultra cool and haunting background music we use for the show is a piece called Noir Guitar by Stevie's Amp Shack, found at the Free Music Archive and licensed under Creative Commons CC BY 4.0. Thanks for listening.